Welcome to the Pony Pundits. Today is Friday, June 26th. I am your host, Sig Las Vegas. You'll notice I do not have our normal co-host with me. Marco D'Angelo is a little too busy celebrating those two Pick 4 tickets he gave out last Saturday at Belmont. So he is taking the week off. I am honored, and actually I have to say a special shout-out thank you to our friend at Kelly in Vegas, who was able to arrange our special guest, Shawn Alvarez, at Smooth Turn 2 on Twitter, as our special guest today on Pony Pundits. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sig, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. I know that you are a handicapper and a contest player from Southern California, but don't know a whole lot else about you. I've been following you on Twitter now for a while. Always interesting post. And let me ask you, how'd you get involved in horse racing?
So I'm born and raised in San Diego. Never really had any interest in the horse track. Didn't really know what went on there other than the racing. Never sparked an interest. And in 2012, I was teaching golf at Fairbanks Ranch Country Club, which is about a mile east of Del Mar Racetrack. And I walked into work one day, and there was a Post-it note on my drawer in my head pro's handwriting that said, "Call Jill Baffert. She wants lessons for her son." I had no clue who she was. I knew she wasn't a member. I knew all the members' names. There wasn't too many of them to remember. But since it was in my head pro's handwriting, I figured, I might as well listen to my boss and give her a shout. So gave her a call and started teaching her youngest son, her and Bob Baffert's youngest son, Bodie, 2.5 months. She would constantly say every time, "If you ever want to go to the track, just let me know." And, I kind of blow it off like, I'll let you know. And I just didn't have any interest. And one of my coworkers said, "I don't care if you like horse racing or not, Del Mar is fun. So you got to go." So I took her up on it and went by myself. And from the first day, just fell in love with the track and just kind of grew from there. And she told me, we got a horse running in the Pacific Classic. It's the $1 million race at Del Mar. And if the horse gets the lead going into the first turn, I think we've got a pretty good shot. And I'd watched probably 3 or 4 days of racing, and I didn't understand class and anything like that. So I had seen horses go to the lead and lose. They wouldn't even weren't very competitive. So, it was really confusing in my mind. And of course, game on dude Martin Garcia goes straight to the front. Nobody challenges him. He shakes the reins at the into the stretch, and he wins by 15, 20 lengths. And I basically looked at her and a couple other people that I knew were a little bit more knowledgeable and said, "Teach me everything you know. I need to learn about this." And so that was kind of my jumping off point into horse racing.
Great story, great way to get started. I mean, he basically started at the top with the Bafferts.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to start.
Del Mar actually is not a bad place to start at all. If you ever go to a track, Marco and I debate all the time. I love Keeneland. He loves Del Mar. If you are going, you can't experience a horse race until you're actually there, until you hear the rumble and the thunder of the hooves going around the track and the people yelling and the screaming. And it's a sensation you can't get watching a race on the television. You come close to it, I think, with the Triple Crown races. NBC does great coverage. But even like this year with the Belmont Stakes last week, you don't have that roar of the crowd as they hit the top of the stretch. You didn't have that. And it's just a total experience that I think everyone should. If you do go and actually go to a horse race, a big race especially, at a nice track, you're not going to want to go back. Even if you don't enjoy the gambling aspect of it, it's a whole experience. It's definitely, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, it's great. And to kind of piggyback on top of that, especially if you haven't been to the track before, I highly suggest on a dirt race, because they're going to be towards the rail a little bit further, go down to the rail when they're running past you, and hearing those hooves hit, gallop by, and just you could feel when they're running by. It's not even so much of a hear, a sound that you hear. It's a feeling that you get, and you understand why there's a lot of kids on the railing, because it's a great feeling to have.
Definitely love that feeling. Speaking, I know Del Mar, I'm sure, is one of these, but what are your favorite tracks and how and why?
So, the easy answer is Del Mar with their 4 o'clock posts on Fridays. I can be at the track with work Friday, Saturday, Sunday. See a lot of my friends and even people that aren't necessarily into horse racing that, I went to high school with and grew up with is fun. But as great as Del Mar is, to me, nothing compares to Santa Anita. I really hope they get back to going down the hill. It's a course that is unrivaled by anything, and it's really fun to watch. But on top of that, I love going to the track by myself because I just go around to different groups, and the people that run Santa Anita, from Aiden Butler to Nate Newby to Tom Quigley to, just everybody there are so friendly, and it really feels like a family atmosphere when you're walking around. And then on top of that, you get the people, the Alan and Tyler Hoffman are there every weekend that own a box, just the nicest people. And it really feels like from the time that you walk in the gates to even dinner outside, going down to the Derby in Arcadia, everybody, it's a family atmosphere, and you're never alone. You can go by yourself and you're never alone at Santa Anita. So it's definitely the top of my list.
It's definitely on my list. Haven't been there yet, but definitely plan to visit as soon as I can. Shawn, I know you're a contest player, and I know you actually have a big contest coming up this weekend at Lone Star. Can you tell we usually don't cover contest play on the show here. It's more handicapping and wagering. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about contest play and where they might be able to go to get started?
So a contest play is kind of a whole nother beast in wagering. It's a lot different where, if you're playing a pick five and you miss one leg, you're out. Whereas if you miss something, even if it's a big price, you're not really hurt unless somebody else has it. It's so head to head. And so it's a real fun way to play for me. It's kind of a different way. Where it gets a little scary for new people. They see these big names, Jonathan Kinchin, a Tommy, Duke Matisse, Paul Matisse. And I mean, there's so many, Michael Baychuk. And, you see these people winning $1 million prizes at the NHC. It's overwhelming. But really it's a great way for new people to kind of get more involved in the game. As you had mentioned, I'm going to Lone Star this weekend to play in a live bankroll contest. Live bankroll contests to me are the number one thing I focus on, not only because you have to handicap the card accordingly, but you also have to manage your bankroll. You can't redeposit like you normally would if you're at a sports book. And it's really just, who has the better opinion, who played their opinion the best that day. But it's also, to me, it's a great way to meet new people, new handicapping angles, strategies. I've never even been to Texas, let alone Lone Star. Now I get to go to Lone Star. I went to Saratoga last year for 2 contests. I went to Monmouth for the Pick Your Prize. So these are places that I've never been to, and I wouldn't even have thought of going to, maybe outside of Saratoga, if it wasn't for these contests. So to kind of circle back onto how to get involved with contests, I play on horsetourneys.com and horseplayers.com. They are connected, so it's the same account. Horse Players is more geared towards feeding into the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, which is a giant $10,000 live bankroll 2-day contest. Not necessarily a great way for somebody to jump in, but on Horse Tourneys, you can play for cash, where it's just, you could play head to head, against 5 people, against 100 people, and your buy-in is obviously going towards the prize. Or like I like to do, I play in little small feeders to try and earn a seat to contests. This Lone Star contest is $1,000 buy-in, and it's paid for by horsetourneys.com because I won an $18 feeder, which got me into the main feeder, and I was lucky enough to grab a seat last weekend and get my trip paid. So, there's cheap ways to do it and there's expensive ways to do it. You kind of have to understand where you're at and your level of investment and what you want to get into. But it's a good way for experienced bettors to get in, and also people kind of still learning the game.
Right. And for our viewers, guys, it's a lot, I think, like the World Series of Poker, where you can buy in for a small amount and walk home with a huge 6 or 7 figure score if you're lucky and good enough. So it's going to be great, I think, for people going forward. And I think it's definitely growing. I mean, I know Shawn qualified for the NHC as a rookie, I think, just last year, his first year trying out in the contest. So, I mean, guys, if you get your feet wet, get a little bit of experience, I mean, it's a good way to, number one, meet a lot of people in the horse racing business, and number two, make some money. I mean, if you can learn and you got some strong opinions that you can back, I mean, always at the wagering window as well, but contest plays are definitely a new way to experience horse racing, and I think it's definitely going to be bigger in the future here going forward. Back to handicapping, Shawn. Do you have a favorite handicapping angle you like to use?
And this kind of circles back into meeting new people with new angles. And so you kind of have to evolve your game not necessarily each and every year, but, each and every week I'm kind of, going back over my process and trying to figure out if there's a hole that needs to be fixed. And one of my favorite handicapping angles currently is, and it seems so basic and it sounds like everybody does it, but watching replays and making your own trip notes is big for me. I write notes, whether that I do it in DRF Formulator, that saves it for me, but you can do it in Excel. You can, kind of use Equibase in their virtual stable as well. And that will let you know when that horse has re-entered into a new race. But, jockeys are human. I'm not ever going to kind of sit here and bash jockeys. I might, be upset, a time or two, but I get over it. They make split-second decisions on 1,400 pan animals going, 40 miles an hour into a turn. Jockeys make mistakes, and I think you can hear it from them. And so when they make a mistake and they try to tip out from cover or, run up into heels, I'm not necessarily looking for trouble, but I'm looking for those decisions that maybe weren't necessarily the right decisions. And when you get somebody that's, a veteran, like Mike Smith, or even, these young guys like Flavian, they learn from their mistakes. So if they made a mistake in the last race, odds are they're not going to make it again. And hopefully you get a little bit of price. And you can kind of lean on those kind of trip notes. So, when you read the trip notes on the side of the past performances, you're basing it off of one person that watched the race probably once or twice. Do the little extra legwork and create your own trip notes, and you're going to find value plays a lot more often, in my opinion.
Agree completely. Actually, that's one thing that Marco and I do a lot of is watch a lot of old trips. We basically bring it up a lot on the show here as well, is that everybody's going to read the notes that are on the PPs and see them there. So that's information everybody has. Going back and watching with your own eyes, making your own notes, and basically having your own opinions on maybe if a horse got caught up or got checked, got cut off, it makes a big difference that you can definitely see it next time out. So use some virtual stables is definitely a great idea. Definitely watching replays. Shawn, what is your favorite horse racing memory? I know you've only been in the game for a short time, but there's always memories for us in this game.
The easy answer is really just kind of every time I go to the track. I love meeting new people and talking to people, but we've kind of already covered that. My favorite kind of the hook me moment in more of the wagering was I was working at Fairbanks on a Sunday, and I was, of course, all the members used to always say that they know when I was working because TVG would be on the TV and not the Golf Channel. So, of course, I'm watching TVG, and they were going over a carryover pick six. Back when Del Mar was running the $2 no jackpot pick six. There was a carryover going into it, and as they went over the sequence, I kept thinking, man, I really like this sequence, and I hold some opinions, but I couldn't validate, for myself putting in like a $400 pick six because those $2 pick six add up quick. So I contacted a couple members that I knew just enjoyed racing, didn't really enjoy handicapping, just enjoy being there and tell me who we have kind of thing. So, I got $100 each from them and we put a $400 ticket in. And I remember sweating it out. And you think 30 minutes is a long time in between races. Try being alive through 4 legs when you've got 2 left and you've never hit a pick six before in your life. I couldn't move. I'm sitting in the box, like shaking with, I wasn't nervous. It was just, it was a feeling, that I hadn't really experienced before. And the fact that other people were riding on me, and they didn't really, they didn't care if we won or lost. Obviously we wanted to lose, but watching, I still remember it to this day. The horse's name was Never a Doubt. Watching Never a Doubt come up in literally the spotlight of the finish line, because this was during the fall season of Del Mar, and it was getting dark. And coming up and winning that pick six, that was kind of my catch me moment. Because not only that, but I got to celebrate it with friends that were, members that were invested, and I think I was the last person to leave the track that day. I don't know. I felt like it was around 10 o'clock at night when I left the track that night.
Hitting those big scores is always memorable, that's for sure. And guys, like Shawn said, get a group of your friends together, pull some money. I mean, yeah, you don't see those $2 pick six that often anymore. They're all these 20-cent jackpot pick sixes. But pull your money, get your opinions together, do some handicapping, and play a big ticket. And maybe you're looking at a big score. Speaking of big scores, transitioning here, we're going to the Belmont Stakes was last week. Tiz the Law basically went in as the favorite and did what he was supposed to do. Shawn, did you foresee that happening? What are your thoughts on Tiz the Law?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people touched on it, kind of called it a glorified allowance race going into it. I don't like to knock horses that just beat the other horses in the gate. It's not the horse's fault of who he's running against. It looked like the horse was going to win by a pole. I was kind of surprised. I thought Tiz the Law was going to open up a little bit more, kind of going into the stretch, but nobody was really coming. It didn't seem like a very, it seemed like a very logical outcome. I was glad to see Dr. Post, rounding out the exacta. Horse always seems to kind of find trouble, even in short fields. And so it was nice to see what that horse can finally do. But, some people kind of knocking Tiz the Law saying, he didn't really beat much, but, he did what he needed to do and he did what we expected him to do.
Agree completely. And between the injuries that we've experienced with the 3-year-olds this year and the fields being divided up and all the races or big Derby preps being postponed or canceled, he's, like you say, he's facing what he's been given. And as they stack him up, he knocks them down. It would be a lot more interesting, I think, to have seen a Belmont Stakes with a Nadal in there, with a Maxfield in there, to actually get to see who the best horse was. But we still have the Kentucky Derby coming up here in a couple months, actually about 2 months away, which is hard to believe at this point. Who is your current favorite for the Kentucky Derby, and do you think we'll see a Triple Crown this year?
I hope that we don't see a Triple Crown. Nothing bashing against the connections, but just for the argument's sake of, kind of I don't want to say move on, but, I just don't, we could kind of go back to the home run record in baseball with the asterisk. I don't really want that to happen. And truthfully, I'm really looking forward to the Kentucky Derby because we're talking about, the Belmont Stakes being shortened, being flip-flopped into the first, and it's a weird Triple Crown. But now we're getting, the Kentucky Derby is what owners look for when they buy horses at these Keeneland sales at different sales. When they're spending $1 million on a horse, they're looking for the Kentucky Derby. Yeah, the Triple Crown would be great. The Belmont Stakes is awesome. The Preakness is awesome, but everybody remembers the Kentucky Derby. So I think that we're going to kind of see more of a competitive Kentucky Derby, whereas when we get that first Saturday in May, we're still getting question marks. Is the Breeders' Cup juvenile horse going to, return to form, or some of these 2-year-olds going to kind of jump up, now we're getting horses that are skipping the Belmonts, skipping other horses or other races and pointing towards the Derby, much later in the year when they're actually, evolving more into their pedigree. And so I'm looking at horses like Honor AP and King Guillermo and even Ete Indian. There's a lot of horses that can jump up. I really am interested in, and I apologize if I get the actual name wrong, but I believe it's Uncle Chuck for Bob Baffert that just ran. Mike Smith's comparing him to Arrogate. And we know Arrogate was a late bloomer before he took down the Breeders' Cup Classic and the Dubai World Cup. So, I think there's a lot of interesting things that can happen where we get the good odds in May because there's not a lot known. I think we're going to get the good odds in September because horses are really kind of, filling out into themselves.
Agree completely. I foresee having an extra 4 months of development here. I think we're definitely going to see some late bloomers here that may actually be a factor come the first weekend of September. Guys, on that note, first Saturday in September is the Kentucky Derby. We will be definitely covering for you here on the Paddock Pro Show, but WagerTalk has a ton of free information for you every day. We have shows at least twice a day at noon and 3 on WagerTalk TV. You got to cover MMA, we cover soccer, auto racing, Korean baseball, horse racing, as yours truly does. So definitely check it out, WagerTalk TV on YouTube. Great information all the time. Shawn, let's roll into our race of the day. It is this Saturday at Churchill Downs. Race number 10 is the Stephen Foster, grade 2. It's 1.1 miles on the dirt for 4-year-olds and up for a $500,000 purse. A great stat that I gleaned this week from the Churchill Downs website via their director of communications, Kevin Kirstein, is that the Stephen Foster, the field combined, has a total of 131 starts. 41 of those were victories for this field. That's 31%. They've won 17 stakes events, and the combined field has won more than $5.5 million. We're looking at a very talented field here on Saturday in the Stephen Foster. What we're going to do, guys, is go through it for you horse by horse, just like we do on a normal week here. The number one horse in here is Fearless, 12-1, your morning line. John Velasquez is riding for trainer Todd Pletcher. He's a 4-year-old gelding out of Go Zapper. Shawn, what do you think about Fearless?
Yeah, I think Fearless is an interesting long shot. You see Todd Pletcher as the trainer, and Todd tends to kind of get him cranked up early. They win early, and this horse did. But you also have to notice that this horse was gelded before that maiden special weight win. So obviously there's things going on. It's a very light raced horse for being 4 years old at this time. Got kind of steady improving figures. Obviously, it didn't improve over the last race, got 94 in the speed figure, but the horse likes the distance, is going to be coming late, got a good jockey, good connections at 12-1. I think is an interesting horse.
Agree with you completely. I mean, he has hit the exacta in 4 of those 5 career starts. Pletcher is good with getting him tuned up as a 2-year-old. Actually, over this winter, because I covered the Gulfstream meet, usually Todd Pletcher's a name you hear a lot. You didn't hear it as much this past winter, but I do foresee him getting these horses fired up, and definitely these 3-year-olds are progressing. I could see him being a factor in here. The 2 horses, Pirates Punch, 15-1 on your morning line. Mike Smith's taking the ride for Grant Forrester. It's a 4-year-old gelding out of Shanghai Bobby. It took a couple of trainers to get this one finally going, but if someone's going to upset this field, I think it's Pirates Punch. The addition of Mike Smith, who's in town actually to ride Midnight Bisou in the next race, is I think definitely a big upgrade here, and I think this horse could definitely surprise. At 15-1, I love the price.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good price, and it's definitely going to be speed, going to be, the part of that pace presence that's going to be up there, and whether or not, the other horses are going to be good enough or get that trip to come in is going to kind of depend, on whether or not this horse is going to be good enough to stick around. To me, the 2 is going to be more of an underneath play, and also kind of the reason why I'm kind of against the favorite here.
All right, let's go on the 3 horse. Hope I don't butcher this one too hard. Alcatom is 30-1 in the morning line. Got Declan Cannon riding for trainer Daniel Peets. He has 2 wins in his past 3 starts. He wins races when he sets the pace or is just off the pace. I think the early pace in here is going to be a little too fast for him, and I'm not really sure he belongs in this field. Shawn, what do you think?
Yeah, again, I think this horse can kind of get in the way of others. I don't really see this horse even as a hit the board type of candidate. I'm going to have to really step up in numbers, and kind of going back to what I said about the 1 with the improving figures. They're very similar figures, but as you alluded to with this horse's many tries, after about 5 or 6, you kind of understand what the horse is. So this horse is a toss for me.
Agree with you completely. All right, guys, moving on to 4 here. Multiplier, familiar name, now 6 years old. It's a gelding out of the Factor. Tyler Gaffleone's riding for trainer Peter Miller. Shawn, what do you think about Multiplier?
And this is an interesting horse for me. And I hate to, sound repetitive. These horses are all kind of going to get a similar trip, going to kind of get that stalking trip. I expect Tyler to kind of be a little bit further back and sit maybe off of Tom Zatat. But I think that horse is going to get a lot out of that last race against Axeman. I thought it was a tough race. It was gutty. And I think this horse is going to move forward off of that. So I think Multiplier is definitely a win candidate in this race.
All right, guys. On Multiplier, I actually disagree a little bit with Shawn here, just because Axeman just did run last week at Santa Anita for Peter Miller. They're shipping him across country 7 days later. But the other thing to notice too, if you take a look at the past performances, he did this last month too at Santa Anita. They ran him again a week later. This is going to be his 4th race in 35 days, and I mean that's a lot on horses. I mean, back in the old days, they used to run them every week or every 2 weeks. They don't run them that much anymore. I respect Peter Miller as a trainer, but I just don't think Multiplier is going to have anything left in the tank here after the 4th race in basically a month and shipping across country. So we'll see what happens. The 5-horse, Tom's Deata, is your morning line favorite at even money. The 7-year-old horse, now Smart Strike, for trainer Al Stahl, is going to have not his regular rider, Joel Rosario, in there, but it's going to be Miguel Mena who's riding for him, as Rosario's committed to some mounts up at Belmont this weekend. Last time we saw Tom's Deata, he was charging down the lane in the Oaklawn Mile in April and basically passing a pretty good horse in Improbable for a nice win. It was a little sloppy that day as well. I get the feeling here that the switch to Mena might be a little bit of a drawback here for the horse. Joe Elf is really familiar with this horse, knows exactly when to get on the fire to get that late run going. So the jockey switch may be an issue here. I am using Tom's Deata on my pick 4 ticket. We'll talk about it a little later, but I don't have him on top winning this race. Shawn, what do you think of Tom's Deata?
I mean, I think you nailed kind of all the talking points. My big thing is, this horse is versatile. It can win coming from off the pace and on the pace. I think he does his best running from off the pace. And now you're going to take away the best closing jockey in the game. So nothing against Mena. But like you said, I mean, I do a lot of upgrading on a closer if Joel's first time on. So I kind of do the same thing with Joel first time off in that same thought. So, in gambling, especially in horse racing, you kind of have to figure out where you're going to take a stand and punch holes in favorites. And if you can punch enough holes in a favorite, you got to kind of take a stand against. Again, with you, I think the horse is definitely logical, and I'm not going to get beat with the horse on the pick 5. The pick 4, but is not my top pick either. All
right, the number 6 horse, by my standards, 5-2 on the morning line. This 4-year-old colt out of Golden Sense is trained by Brett Calhoun. Gabriel Saez, his regular rider, will ride. This colt hasn't lost since last February 2019, except for the Kentucky Derby. So that was a pretty quality field that he lost to. But other than that, he's won every race out there. Calhoun always has his horse ready to fire, and I think this colt's going to be ready to go on Saturday. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is my top pick. I think this horse is going to kind of hook on to right in front of Tom's Deata and kind of get that first run. And 3 for 3 for the distance, loves kind of that mile and a quarter mile, mile and an eighth kind of distance, right around that range. Saez knows the horse, like we had just said with Mena being first time on. Saez knows the horse, knows the buttons to push. This is going to be my pick to upset the favorite here.
All right, guys. Yeah, no, by my standards, it's actually my number 2 choice. I went for a little more of a price here we'll get to shortly. The 7 horse, Silver Dust, is a 6-year-old gelding Tappet. He's 10-1 in your morning line. Adam Bischizzo is going to ride for trainer Brett Calhoun. What do you think about Silver Dust?
Yeah, I mean, the horse has definitely got a chance to win. I think, is good enough to win. But like we had kind of already, I love pace in a horse race. That's kind of where I first start handicapping, is figuring out who's going to go to the lead, what kind of trips people are going to get. There are so many horses that are going to get this kind of stalking trip. And unfortunately, I just think better horses with, good riders, good trainers in good form are going to get that same trip. And so I would play the horse underneath. I wouldn't toss completely, but I didn't even use in my pick 4.
Yep. I didn't use him either, Shawn. I think he needs to be on or near the lead, and I think this field's a little bit too much quality for him here. I think to even try to keep up with this field is definitely going to wear him down. I landed on the 8 horse here, guys, Owendale. 4-1 your morning line. It's a 4-year-old colt out of Into Mischief. Florent Giroux's riding for trainer Brad Cox. I like him at a price. I think you're going to see the money flow in here on Tom's Deata, and by my standards, he's 4-1 your morning line. I think that price is going to float up on the tote board. I think he's a good horse. I think he's just a step below that top tier of 3-year-olds that came out last year. And I definitely think at a price, I think I see 4-1 definitely going up, maybe 6-1, 7-1. I think it's a nice price. I'm betting him at those kind of prices there. He's making a second start of his layoff in his 4-year-old campaign. And last time we saw him, he was winning the Blame at Churchill last month pretty convincingly. So, Shawn, what are your thoughts on Owendale?
I mean, I really enjoy when this horse is running. Then this is my second choice. My only thing with Owendale is he's a hard trying horse and definitely is involved, obviously other than the Breeders' Cup Classic, but it just always seems like things have to go exactly the horse's way. And with that being said, it really kind of looks like it will go this horse's way. But coming off of that trip, and we had kind of mentioned about watching replays, I kind of go off of, kind of veer away from those nice looking wins because everybody's going to kind of bet off of it. And you're right. The horse, even though you see that half length, the horse won in hand last time out in the Blaine. And I definitely see your opinion. It looks like we're going to go head to head with the 6 and the 8 here.
Guys, normally Marco and I give you an idea how we're going to play it here, but I know Shawn's got a contest tomorrow. We're not going to let the competition know where he's thinking, so we're going to move right on here. We are going to, this is the first for the Pony Pundits show, is our pick 4, the play of the day, is an all-stakes pick 4. First time we've ever done an all-stakes pick 4. Tomorrow at Churchill Downs to close out the card. We're going races 8 to 11 on the card. Kicking it off with the race number 8. It's called the Bashford Manor. It's a grade 3 stakes for 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the dirt. Shawn, I landed, and I think most are going to land here on the morning line favorite, Casadero at 8 to 5. He looked good in his maiden win. More likely, though, he's going to go off of even money here or worse. I can't bet him at those kind of prices. Ricardo Santana is riding this 2-year-old out of Street Sense for trainer Steve Asmussen. That debut I talked about was at Churchill, winning a 5 furlong affair by more than 8 lengths. It was really impressive. I actually have 2 pick 4 tickets for you guys today. I am singling this guy, and one of them is going to be a big $5 ticket. But being these are 2-year-old horses, a lot of these are only their second race, and they do move by leaps and bounds at this point in their career. I am definitely going 4 deep here in this first leg of the pick 4 on my 50-cent ticket. But I will be singling Casadero on the $5 ticket. Shawn, your thoughts here on Casadero?
I mean, it's definitely the horse to beat. It runs anything like that last race. I don't think there's anything in this race that can beat Casadero. With that being said, we're going to stretch out another furlong. You touched on it that these are 2-year-olds with, each and every one of them with one race. We don't really know how these horses are going to come out of this race. The one benefit that we do have is this is the start of the pick 4. So you can I like to see that early money. That's usually the barn money because they've already bet earlier in the day. Kind of see what this horse starts at. If it's hammered early, you're probably right on with starting with the single. I thought the same thing as well. I went 5 deep in a pick 4. I saw the kind of later part of the card, obviously only being 4 races, the later 3 races of the card kind of being a little bit more on the favorite side. So this is a time when I'm not going to take a stand and not use the horse, but I went 5 deep in the pick 4 to start off, just trying to catch that price.
All right, guys. Yeah, I'm 4 deep in here. I also used the 5 Herd Immunity, the 7 Country Final, and the 4 Hyper Focus. Who else are you using in here, Shawn?
I have got the 2. I'm sorry, let me get back to the past performances. I've got the 2 Hewlin, the 3 Gatsby, the 4 Hyper Focus, the 6 Casadero, and the 7 County Final.
All right, guys, and always we'll recap the ticket for you here at the end, so don't worry about trying to take too many notes. And I will also have it on Twitter for you guys tomorrow like I normally do each week. Moving on, race number 9 is the Florida Lee Handicap. It's a grade 2 for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, going 1 1/8 on the dirt. And we get to see the North American return as a 5-year-old of Midnight Bisou. She's 3 to 5 on your morning line. She's kicking off her North American 5-year-old campaign, but we did see her run a real close second to Maximum Security at Dubai back in February in a very impressive run, in my opinion. The mare for Steve Asmussen will be ridden by her regular rider, Mike Smith, and has never missed the board in 20 career starts. Think about that. 20 races in the money, every single one of those. She's faced some of the toughest competition over the past few years out there, and she's never finished worse than 3rd. Good horse, consistent horse. My one concern is, number one, she's never won at Churchill Downs. She's raced there twice, finished 3rd twice there. So I'm not singling her on my 50-cent pick 5 ticket. She will be singled on my $5 pick 4 ticket. I'm sorry, 50-cent pick 4 ticket, and she'll be singled on my $5 pick 4 ticket. But I think there's another horse in here that could give her a problem, and I think Shawn's using that horse on top. So, Shawn, who do you like here?
Serengeti Empress. I love watching her run because she just absolutely flies out of the gate. But one thing I took from Tom Amoss that he had said, I believe it was when I want to say it was when I don't remember the race that she won, but there was a video that she ran when Tom Amos's wife looked, and when the fractions ran 45, she said, no, man, she's going way too fast. And he said, not for her. And she just runs fast. And her thing is, you know, when you see those fractions, and even when you see 46 and change after that first you know, half mile, that's a little nerve-wracking. But if there's nobody around, she just does it so easily. And then the other thing I like about her is when someone heads her, she kicks into that second gear. And so that's, again, why I'm kind of against Midnight Bisou here. It's definitely the horse to beat, as you had touched on. But the other thing, you know, that second place against Maximum Security, that was in, you know, Saudi Arabia. And I think it is going to be very similar to the trip from Dubai. And when horses come back from Dubai after running a big race over there, they tend to need one or sometimes even two to come back. So for her to run down Serengeti Empress, if Serengeti Empress is anything like she is, I think she just runs away.
I can't disagree with you there. I am using Serengeti Empress as my second pick on the 50-cent ticket. The one thing that concerned me was that last out in that Apple Blossom at Oaklawn, she did sort of peter out here, and maybe because that was her first race in a while, but I think that she definitely will go to the lead here, and I think Midnight Bisou's going to just sit off of her and hopefully use that tactical speed. I'm using Serengeti Empress, though, defensively, because this might just be a prep for Midnight Bisou. As Shawn said, she's been off for almost 4 months now, coming back from Dubai. May need a race. Maybe they're getting this as a prep for her to get her into some big grade ones over the summer here, either Saratoga or Del Mar or even Keeneland, so we'll wait and see. That's coming up in a few weeks. Race number 10 is the Stephen Foster. We just covered that for you guys in depth as the race of the day. As I mentioned, I'm going to have 8 on top, Owendale, followed by 6 by my standards and 5 Tom's Day at top. Shawn, who'd you use on the pick 4 here?
Yeah, I as we had mentioned, I used the 6 by my standards on top, and I also used the 1 Fearless. I used the 4 Multiplier. I defensively used the 5 Tom's Day Tot, the 6 by my standards, and the 8 Owendale.
All right, guys, moving on to the final race of this pick 4. Final leg is the Regret Stakes. It's a grade 3 for 3-year-old fillies going a mile and an eighth on the turf. I don't know about you, Shawn, but this race had me pulling my hair out. At one point, I had my pick 4 with Midnight Bisou singled, and I was like 8 or 9 deep in this leg because I couldn't separate. I finally decided to go with Serengeti Empress defensively in that leg, and I narrowed it down to 4 here. My top choice, I landed on Past the Plate. 6-1, your Morning Lion. Julian Leperoux's riding for trainer Paul McGee. I like this filly at a price to close out the Saturday card. Has hit the board in all 7 of her starts, including 2 wins. McGee wins at a 27% rate when he puts them in stakes, so he knows how to place them. And more surprisingly, he's in the money 73% of the time. So when he puts a horse in a stakes race, he feels pretty confident that horse is going to perform in that stakes race. I think she might close out this pick 4 at a nice price, 6-1 the Morning Line. Who knows where she'll end up? I also used the 5 Crystal Cliffs, the 9 Eve of War, and the 4 In Good Spirits on my ticket. Shawn, who do you like here in race 12? I'm race 11.
So after I hopefully talk Mena off of losing with Tom's Day Tot, I hope that he comes back and wins this race, because I looked at kind of very similar to that Serengeti Empress race. I see the 4 kind of as a possible loose leader on the lead. I don't see a lot that even want to go with her. So that's my top pick. I also like the 12 as well. And I think a key thing to keep in mind, especially for people kind of new to actually looking at the past performances, you see a post position of 12 that kind of freaks you out. It's important to know where the starting gate is. And the starting gate at Churchill Downs for a mile and an eighth race on the turf is at the beginning of the stretch. So he's got the entire length of the stretch to get over and not get caught 12 wide. So I don't really hold anything against it, that horse as well. And also one of my picks. I landed on In Good Spirit, the 4, the 5 Crystal Cliffs, and the 12 Past the Plate to close out my pick 4.
All right, sounds good, Shawn. Guys, as a recap for the tickets here, I'm giving you 2 tickets today. I got a 50-cent ticket starting in race 8. We're going to go 6, 5, 4, 7 with the 5 and 4, with 8, 6, 5 and 2, with the 12, 5, 9 and 4. That is a big ticket. It's a $64.50 pick 4 ticket. It's a big day at Churchill, like we tell you guys on these big days. You can play a little bigger ticket. The pools are going to be inflated. There will be money to be won here. And we talked about, there's some very competitive races here. We agree on a couple. We disagree on a couple. There will be money to be made in this pick 4 on Saturday at Churchill. I've also told you guys a $5 ticket. I got a single with 6. Casadero, the 5 Midnight Bisou, and then we went 8-6-5 in that third leg, and just a 2 in the final leg, 2-5. I'm sorry, 12-5. It's a $5 ticket. It'll be $30 for you to play that ticket for $5. Shawn, how's your ticket look?
Yeah, so my ticket is $37.50. I took the 2, the 3, the 4, the 6, and the 7 in that 8th race to start off the pick 4. I singled the 4 Serengeti Empress. I took the 1, 4, 5, 6, and 8 in the Stephen Foster. And I closed out the ticket with 4, 5, and 12, again coming to $37.50 for a 50-cent wager.
All right, guys, I'll tweet out all 3 tickets for you guys tomorrow before the races kick off. One quick note for you guys, too. I didn't ask Shawn about this ahead of time, but I'm going to throw it out there because the show ran a little quick today. The Ohio Derby is this weekend at Thistle Downs, just outside of Cleveland. We're going to see the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner storm the court. He is your favorite in there. I'm actually have to go look at the race because there are 20 Kentucky Derby points on the line there. And I think these smaller races that are being run this summer at some of the smaller tracks with Kentucky Derby points will actually play a factor based on where the point standings are now. 20 points can definitely get you into the field. I know Storm the Court's the favorite in there. I'm actually looking at a nice long shot in here, guys. Bill Mott has the 6 in here, Sprawl. It's Colt out of City Zip. He won last night at Churchill Downs in an allowance on May 28th. He's been improving. Mott seems to get them working pretty well here. And he's 15-1 on the morning line. I'm taking a shot to upset Storm the Court here. At 15-1, I can't beat that price. Shawn, I don't know if you've taken a look at this race at all. I know I'm hitting you out of the blue with it, but any thoughts on it?
I haven't. This is kind of right in the middle of my contest, and I won't. Thistledown is not part of the contest, so no, it is not something that I've handicapped. I'm kind of looking at it as you're talking and getting Paco Lopez to go right at Thistledowns. They're playing with Paco Lopez, so I will be rooting for Storm the Court. I always like when Peter Urton wins. He's a very nice guy, and so with my heart, I'll be rooting for Storm the Court. But I don't even know that I'll see it until I get home.
Can understand completely. Sorry to hit you out of the blue with that one. Just had a note here that I forgot about. Shawn, I want to thank you for joining us today on the show. Guys, you can follow Shawn on Twitter at SmoothTurn, the number 2. He's got always great content, always great interaction with the fans and with other people on Twitter. I appreciate you joining us, getting to know our players getting to know you. Good luck on your contest at Lone Star this weekend. We'll be pulling for you. And guys, on that note, thank you for joining us for a slightly abbreviated Pony Pundit show today. Hopefully we'll have Marco back with us next week. But as he says to close out every show, hope to see you guys in the winner's circle with a ton of winning tickets in your hand. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.